Every day, millions of people drive cars without fear, hesitation, or second thoughts, yet a single airplane flight can instantly trigger anxiety, tension, and racing hearts. That fear feels natural, automatic, and logical. But what if the thing that scares you most is actually far safer than the thing you trust daily? Today we're answering a simple but uncomfortable question using real evidence, real statistics, and psychology that explains why your instincts might be completely wrong. Before we show any facts, pause for a moment and choose honestly. Which feels more dangerous to you right now? Flying high above clouds or driving familiar roads? Most people fear flying because when airplanes fail, the consequences appear sudden, dramatic, and uncontrollable, creating powerful memories that stay locked inside the human brain. Your brain remembers shocking images, loud headlines, and emotional stories far more easily than quiet, boring safety records that never make the news. Driving feels safer because it's familiar, routine, and repetitive, allowing your brain to relax even though danger still exists every single time you turn the key. Familiarity creates confidence. Confidence creates comfort. And comfort quietly lowers attention, reaction speed, and awareness, especially during short trips close to home. To understand real danger, we must ignore feelings completely and look directly at numbers, probabilities, and patterns repeated consistently across countries, years, and millions of journeys. Let's start with driving because it feels ordinary, harmless, and controllable, yet statistically, it is responsible for enormous loss of life. Worldwide, every single year. Every year, road accidents kill over 1 million people worldwide, a number so large it becomes abstract, normalized, and strangely invisible in daily conversation. That means thousands of people die every single day simply trying to commute, run errands, visit family, or return home from work. Most of these crashes don't involve dramatic chases or extreme weather, but ordinary moments, ordinary roads, and drivers who feel completely comfortable. Speed, distraction, fatigue, alcohol, and overconfidence combine quietly, turning everyday driving into one of the most statistically dangerous activities humans perform regularly. What makes driving especially risky is not machines failing, but people making small mistakes, momentary lapses, or poor decisions at exactly the wrong time. Text messages, notifications, navigation screens, and conversations slowly steal attention, even when drivers believe they are fully focused and completely in control. The danger grows because cars operate in unpredictable environments, surrounded by other humans making independent choices, each with different skills, moods, and reactions. Despite all this, driving rarely feels frightening because danger repeated often enough becomes invisible, familiar, and emotionally muted inside the human mind. Now that we understand driving's risks, it's time to examine flying, the form of transportation many people fear most but understand least. To judge aviation fairly, we must set aside dramatic crash imagery and instead examine how airplanes are designed, regulated, monitored, and operated worldwide. Modern commercial airplanes are among the most thoroughly engineered machines ever created, designed with safety margins that assume failures will eventually happen. Every critical system on board has multiple backups, and those backups often have additional independent systems ready to take over instantly if needed. Pilots train for rare emergencies repeatedly, practicing scenarios most passengers will never experience, ensuring calm responses under pressure rather than panic or improvisation. Airplanes are inspected constantly, before flights, after flights, overnight, and during scheduled maintenance cycles that catch problems long before they become dangerous. Unlike cars, airplanes operate in tightly controlled airspace, guided continuously by radar, automation, communication systems, and trained professionals monitoring every movement. Even when something goes wrong, aviation systems are designed so small failures remain small, preventing single mistakes from cascading into catastrophic outcomes. Because of this layered approach, fatal commercial airplane accidents are incredibly rare compared to the sheer number of flights completed safely every year. Statistically speaking, the average person could fly every day for thousands of years before experiencing a fatal accident, based purely on probability alone. These numbers feel unbelievable because human intuition struggles with large statistics, especially when emotional images override logical risk assessment. Now comes the comparison that surprises most people, challenges common fears, and forces us to rethink what danger actually means in everyday life. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Statistically, you are far more likely to die driving to the airport than during the actual airplane flight itself. That statement feels wrong emotionally because flying removes personal control, while driving gives the illusion that skill alone can prevent disaster. Control feels like safety, even when evidence shows it often leads to overconfidence, distraction, and risky behavior without conscious awareness. In cars, humans make constant decisions every second, while airplanes rely heavily on standardized procedures, automation, and teamwork rather than individual impulse. Driving exposes you to thousands of unpredictable variables, including other drivers, weather changes, road conditions, fatigue, and momentary lapses in judgment. Then, flying removes most of those variables by limiting human improvisation, replacing it with checklists, protocols, and systems designed to prevent chaos. Ironically, the transportation method that feels boring, controlled, and restrictive is usually the one keeping you safest throughout the journey. The transportation method that feels normal and empowering often hides its danger behind routine, repetition, and a false sense of personal mastery. This mismatch between feeling safe and actually being safe explains why fear rarely aligns with real-world risk or statistical probability. Understanding this gap helps us make smarter decisions, not by eliminating fear, but by placing it alongside evidence rather than above it. When rare airplane accidents occur, they dominate global headlines for weeks, creating emotional shockwaves that distort perception and make extremely unlikely events feel common. Car crashes happen so frequently they rarely make news, even though their cumulative death toll quietly surpasses almost every other transportation risk combined. Media coverage focuses on drama, visuals, and emotion, training our brains to associate flying with catastrophe while ignoring everyday dangers we constantly survive. Psychologists call this availability bias, meaning events easier to recall feel more likely, regardless of how rarely they actually happen in reality today. Flying accidents are unforgettable because they violate expectations, whereas car accidents blend into background noise created by constant repetition in modern society today. Your brain evolved to fear rare, dramatic threats, not slow statistical dangers that accumulate quietly over time without emotional warning signs for humans. This evolutionary mismatch made sense thousands of years ago, but modern transportation risks operate very differently from ancient survival threats faced daily by humans. As a result, we overestimate spectacular dangers and underestimate ordinary ones, even when evidence consistently points in the opposite direction for most people. Recognizing this bias doesn't eliminate fear, but it allows us to question instincts before letting them control important decisions about travel, safety, choices. With this perspective, we can finally answer the original question using clarity, evidence, and reason instead of reflexive fear and intuition alone. When we compare flying and driving, honestly, one relies on strict systems and preparation, while the other depends heavily on individual judgment and constant attention. The more responsibility placed on individual humans, the more opportunities exist for error, distraction, fatigue, and emotional decision-making under pressure. Aviation reduces risk by removing choice wherever possible, replacing personal judgment with rules, redundancy, and continuous monitoring at every stage. Driving does the opposite, placing millions of independent decision-makers into shared spaces where one mistake can instantly affect many others nearby. This difference explains why driving deaths accumulate quietly, while flying deaths remain rare, shocking, and statistically insignificant by comparison over time. Safety improves not when we feel confident, but when systems anticipate failure and prevent small mistakes from turning into irreversible consequences. Understanding risk requires humility, accepting that personal experience is limited, biased, and often misleading when compared to large-scale statistical evidence. When fear and facts conflict, facts should guide decisions, while fear should simply signal questions, not dictate conclusions or behavior automatically. So the next time anxiety rises before boarding a plane, remember that discomfort does not equal danger, and familiarity does not equal safety. Real intelligence lies in recognizing invisible risks, questioning instinctive reactions, and choosing evidence-based understanding over emotional comfort whenever possible. This comparison isn't meant to eliminate fear completely, but to replace blind anxiety with understanding, perspective, and respect for how safety truly works. Fear evolved to protect us, but in the modern world, it often reacts faster than logic, statistics, and carefully designed safety systems. When we confuse emotional intensity with actual danger, we risk making decisions that feel comforting but statistically expose us to greater harm. Flying challenges our instincts, while driving flatters them. And that psychological difference shapes our fears far more than real-world outcomes. Once you recognize this pattern, you begin noticing it everywhere, from health choices to technology fears and everyday risk assessments. The smartest minds aren't fearless, they're curious, willing to question instincts, examine evidence, and update beliefs when facts demand it. That ability to pause, question, and rethink is what truly separates knowledge from assumption and wisdom from reflexive reaction. So the next time you face a choice involving risk, ask yourself whether fear is responding to reality or simply reacting to unfamiliarity. Learning to ask better questions doesn't just make you safer, it makes you more aware, more rational, and more in control of decisions. If this surprised you, comment your next comparison idea, subscribe for more quiz documentaries, and keep training your brain to think deeper.